the beginning, stock cars outran the police to deliver the hooch to our ancestors. So sweet. Are you ready for a trip down victory lane, where Richard Petty's winnings were insane and Dale Earnhardt put everyone to shame? Canadian Junior Handley is in the Hall of Fame. Live from Haldeman County, it's time for the Driver in Deep podcast. Are you ready?
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for episode 37 of Driver in Deep, brought to you by wingnutsports.com. My name is Mark McSporran, and I'm here again with the self-proclaimed curmudgeon, Alex Nagy. Today, we have with us Bill Burns, a very accomplished crew chief with a long history in NASCAR Pinty series, with many wins and championships along the way, including a couple of recent big NASCAR Whelen Euro Series wins for Jacques Villeneuve.
Yeah, I've known Billy for quite a while and even had a chance to work with him at one point. I'm not looking forward to getting a view on his side of the sport. I'm really looking forward to getting a view from his side of the sport, because I don't think we've had anyone on with us from the crew chief side or the crew side before.
Alex, you know what? I'm going to say something I don't say very often. I believe you are correct.
Nice.
Sort of. You know, we have had guys on the podcast, you know, recently. You remember Silver Balls Coxey?
Oh, yeah.
He's been doing some crew chiefing, I believe, right?
Yeah, I guess they'd probably let him help. But anyways. Yeah.
Well, anyway, you know, I don't believe, though, that we have had anyone on the podcast where their primary gig for most of their career anyway has been that. So, you know, this should be fun. But before we get to that, last week you mentioned we were getting close to 1,000 followers on our Wingnut Sports Facebook page. Are we there yet?
Not quite. But man, I'll tell you what, after last week's podcast, it moved the needle quite a bit.
Well, that's great. And if you are listening right now and you haven't joined our Facebook page, please take a moment, head over to Facebook, search for Wingnut Sports, and like our page. You know, this way you'll be notified when we post our episodes and some of our other crazy content we put on there.
You mean like you being a Sabres fan at 2 years old, dressed up like a Zamboni?
Why do you have to do this, man? That wasn't me. You know it, and I'm sure anybody that knows me knows it. That kid's a pretty lucky kid, though. And you just broke your word about not talking about hockey today. But anyway, I do believe there's some other non-hockey crazy content there that people might want to check out.
One more thing about hockey I've got for you.
Oh, God.
Simple. It's small.
Yeah.
22nd.
22nd?
Yeah. You always talk about facts, and fact is the Sabres in 22nd. Anyways, for some crazy
Well,
reason,
hang on a second. Actually, you're incorrect there. Because of their big win against Pittsburgh, they're now only 1 point out of a playoff spot. So if you're going to quote facts, make sure they're recent facts, buddy.
Overall standings, 22nd. Anyways,
not anymore. That was last week. That was before our big wins against Edmonton in regulation and Pittsburgh in regulation. And this week, like I said, the Sabres have to maintain 500 hockey through this really tough stand that they got going. And by the end of the month, we're going to be sitting just fine. But anyway, what else do you have to say?
The podcast started today, and by the time this airs, they'll be probably 24th. Anyways, for some reason, crazy seems to follow us around.
Yeah, Kevin. Anyway.
Did you see the video on our Facebook page of my nephew Hudson racing on the RC course on foot?
Well, I think there's been 100,000 people that have seen that, but you know, maybe you can explain a little bit of that context of that to our listeners.
Well, Hudson, you know, they were at Ray Morneau's surprise birthday party in Windsor. The Morneau family, great racing family, all the great racers down there in the Windsor area. Get some of those folks on at some point, by the way. Anyways, Hudson, Nate Spinks, and Wally Wilson lined up on Morneau's little concrete RC track they built during COVID because they were bored to hell and couldn't race. So they built a little RC track. And there's, drinking and carrying on at race party, and they had a little race.
But not an RC race.
No, it was 3 guys, Hudson, Nagy, Nate Spinks, and Wally Wilson on foot.
On a foot race around an RC track.
Yeah.
Well, I guess since, you got to go to our Facebook page and watch this video. But I will say I couldn't believe after the start of the race, I think going into the second turn, Hudson sent Wally Wilson over, like completely off the racetrack, over the wall and into a fence.
Out of the park, man. They threw him out of the park.
They awesome. Did. I couldn't believe it. That was awesome. Way to go, Hudson. And by the way, I'm a little afraid of you now, buddy.
Yeah, tough little bugger. Listen, this is what happens when you're 21 and you have girls and alcohol involved. You know what it was like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And, let's just say I'm glad I'm not 21 anymore. And, in my day, there wasn't any video evidence involved, but in your day, I'm sure the video probably would have been black and white and barely recognizable anyway.
Oh, of course. Of course it was. Listen, we have a great guest today, like you said earlier, that is way more interesting than any of the crap that you can spew. So why don't we get him on?
Yeah. You know what? This is going to be twice in one day. Alex, you're correct. Let's talk to Bill.
You can find our next guest, Bill Burns, on Facebook at bill.burns and on Twitter at B_Burns47. But let's be honest here, Billy doesn't do much social media, so let's bring him in. Welcome to Driver in Deep, Burnsy.
How are you guys?
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm great. Hey, Bill, it's Mark here. Nice to meet you, and thanks for joining us today. Before we get started, for those that don't know you, currently you are the crew chief for a fellow Canadian, Jacques Villeneuve, in the NASCAR Euro Series. And you and the team just ended the season a few weeks ago, very strong, with Jacques getting his first win in the NASCAR event. And I think Nags mentioned to me at some point that he worked with Jacques for one race in St. Eustache, I believe. Can you tell us a little about your win and what it's like to work with such an icon in our sport?
Hang on a sec, Billy. Let me just say, my results with Jacques weren't quite as good as what you've had, buddy. I don't know if you remember that race where I think we got about 3 laps in and I standing with Jacques in the infield.
The guy that I was working for ruined your day.
I wasn't gonna bring that up, but
I knew it was gonna come up at some point. No, we did end up pretty strong over in we were in Rome, actually, in Europe, and it's a little bit different over there. Obviously, now over in Canada, we race from coast to coast. They race in about 9 different countries over there, so it's a little bit different. But you got to look at it as kind of almost it's like racing through Canada, but you're just doing it through Europe. We got better all through the season. Now, if anybody knows, Jack's a pretty iconic person, especially in Canada, for what he's achieved in his racing endeavors. And there's a lot of things that, if you look back at what his career was compared to most Canadian drivers did, I'm not too sure that and Alex, you can pipe in on this, that we're going to see somebody in the near future that did what he did in a short period of time that he did it in.
Yeah, I agree, Bill. I mean, with the IndyCar stuff and the Formula One, he ventured off into NASCAR and did some Xfinity stuff. And that's why I think Mark said, I can't believe he never got a win in that stuff. He did some truck stuff as well. But to get his first NASCAR event win, I'd like you to tell us what Jack thought of that. Because it's been a while since he's won, which is a shame because he's so super talented. And when I had that little bit of time with him, man, he's such a down-to-earth guy. Like, you feel so intimidated by him at first because, I mean, dude, this guy he's a hero, not just in Canada, as well over there in Europe. They all love him. So, what did Jack think when he won that race?
I think it was pretty special to him because he hadn't won in such a long time. And it was his very first NASCAR win, believe it or not. And you talk about the nationwide stuff that he did. And, he was on the pole at Montreal in a nationwide car. He led it right till the end, till they ran him out of gas. I think it was at Montreal or Watkins Glen. I can't remember which one. So he came very, very close so many times that finally we went to a track he really likes. He did a lot of Formula One testing there in the late 90s. So he knew the track inside and out. Nobody was gonna outline him on that track. And we missed it by having a perfect weekend. We missed it just by a 10th, I think, in qualifying. We qualified second first. See, it's a little different over there. They run 2 races in one weekend. Okay, so you practice Friday, you race on Saturday, and then you race on Sunday. Okay, so, and they're short races, 18 to 20 laps, mostly on a 2.5 mile racetrack. So we missed it by a 10th. They take your fastest lap in the first race. That's your qualifying for the second race. He had the fastest lap in the first race, won the first race, started on the pole in the second race, dropped back to second for a little while, and then drove up first. And I think he was 2 or 3 seconds ahead of everybody at the end. So he was pretty happy. He was really happy the first day. And then it was kind of like one of those, when you get that super confidence that, you pretty much knew going in, as long as something didn't fall off or break off it, that he was going to win the second race too.
Yeah. And man, I'll tell you, there's no slouches over there either. There's some racers. Day, and all those guys. I mean, holy smokes!
Alan Day is a very talented road racer, and it just seems like you can see his talent come out. Over there, they have no weather conditions. If whatever the weather condition is, you adjust for it. You race in it. It doesn't matter. I think if it snowed, you'd still be racing. But when it rains, Alan Day rises up a whole bunch more higher than everybody else. There's probably no better guy in the wet than that guy.
Wow, that's great, man. Listen, I hate to say this, but all you do is win, and you're.
Why do you hate to say it?
I have to admit it. Listen, you're from the London area, and you worked in racing all over Canada. So, how did the NASCAR Euro opportunity come about? And I'm pretty sure it wasn't your first person you worked with over there. Besides Jacques, didn't you work with some other guys as well? And so, tell us about that, and then. You talked a little bit about how the racing goes, but what's the biggest difference between the Euro Series and the Pinty Series here?
We'll start with the first question you asked. How I got over there is Alain Mourneur had the Can-Am sponsorship.
Right.
And NASCAR approached him about starting a team in Europe in the Euro Series. So, and he had the Can-Am sponsorship. So he took the Can-Am sponsorship over to Europe and basically leased a car. It wasn't I didn't get there till I think 3 races in 2018. He called me and hired me to go over to kind of oversee what they were doing. And my first drivers were actually, his name was Romain Iannetta. He was actually a pretty good shoe, all in that. He was a stunt driver for movies. I can't remember something like the one that really stands out to me that he was in was Born Identity. When they did the stunts, the driving stunts in Born Identity movie, he was the stunt driver for that movie. Right. And then in 2019, they really wanted to get a Formula One driver, and then being from Canada, both of us knew him, so it was kind of a perfect match of going forward there. Now the cars are more of a club car, let's just say. They're kind of a hybrid from Pinty's car. They kind of got like a late model front and rear clip on it. It's got like a Pinty series center section
with about 45 extra bars and gussets.
Yeah. They have to follow under the FIA safety rules. I know that when they first went over there, they had to crash test a couple of the cars. So that's where that led into a lot of gussets and bars and weight that, that we don't like. But if it keeps everybody safe, I guess it's prominent. There's not the adjustability that we have in Canada. You just don't, you're kind of locked in to what you can actually change. They give you, I lobbied this year, but in most cases, they only give you 4 springs, and those 4 springs you use everywhere. They give you 4 shocks. Now, mind you, the shocks are where you can do your adjustment. They're 3-way adjustable shocks, really expensive compared to the Pinty side of things. Pinty side probably has more of a stock brake system. This has got a full-blown Brembo brake system on it.
Right.
So there's attributes where Canada cars might be, a little bit more superior. They are really with geometry and how to be able to change the geometry however you want. Over there, you have not too much room to play with. You can play with some widths, but they lock you down on the size of the rear end housing, so you can't go too wide in the front, too narrow in the front. Other than that, they run on 4 radial tires. You got to use the same 4 tires for the whole weekend, unless one doesn't hold air, of course. And where, and that's fairly expensive compared to what the Canada cars are on a bias ply tire, which everybody knows is probably half the price, right?
Sure. I know Mark's got something for you, but you said their shocks are way more expensive than the Pinty shocks, the AFCOs. So
Yeah.
Are they more expensive? I know they're more expensive than the AFCOs you buy at the store, but are they more, you're being the crew chief now, buddy, are they more expensive than the good AFCOs? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I'll throw a number out at you. They're €1,400 per corner.
Okay, so you can't even cut the AFCOs open and do shit for that kind of money. You can't spend that much money.
No. So if you look at it, an AFCO, I don't know what an AFCO Pinty series shock is now. They're probably around 100 and a quarter, I guess. So you think about it, you could almost buy 14 shocks for one of them.
Yeah.
So, and the adjustment's only done externally. You're not to take it apart to change the shim stacks and pistons or the oil or anything like that.
So you said, Billy, that they give that to you. Did they give it to you like in the rules, or do they actually supply those?
No, you have to pay for it. Yeah,
so
it's in the rule. You have to buy them. You have to buy that shock absorber.
And you can take it home, though.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, you own all.
I really hate it when I have to change the shim stacks myself. But anyway, Bill, it sounds like it's been a great experience.
Where did you get that terminology, Billy? I'll tell you what Mark knows about racing. We park our campers here at the racetrack. Good one, Mark. I appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, give me some credit there too. Hey, Bill, it sounds like it's been a great experience for you over in Europe, but let's roll the calendar back a little bit now. How did you get started in this crazy sport? And were you a driver before you became a crew guy?
I was. I was a driver for, believe it or not, 13 years. I ran, basically enduro cars out at Delaware. I grew up 10 minutes from Delaware Speedway. So, and to backtrack that, my father had a race car, so I was basically, there day in and day out. And same with all the other tracks around southwestern Ontario, your Saubles, Cayuga, Flamborough, of course. Was there just about religiously, probably almost every weekend. And my racing career, I'm like everybody else. All I needed was just the money and a chance. And I would have been up there with everybody. But, I think I realized too, one, I couldn't afford it. That was one big thing. And Alex I'm sure he can remember this. Do you ever remember me coming down to Sam's and buying used slicks off of you? Because we had a rule when I raced a modified that you had to use a used slick.
Yep, I think that's the first time we met.
Yeah, it likely was. And that would have been the early 90s.
Early,
yeah. It would have been 93, 2, 3, 4 in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's a long time ago. And that's about the stint of my racing career.
Well, hey,
I knew that ship was going to sail at some point, but I think it's definitely sailed now. I don't know if I could get in one now and make it happen. I could talk about it. I don't know if I can make it happen.
Sorry you brought it up no more.
Not really, no. It's good to know.
You're a heck of a driver, buddy. Heck of a driver. You talked about the Enduros, and we had old Silver Balls Coxie on here a couple weeks ago, and it's funny. He talked about all the guys he competed against, and your name never came up.
Yeah, I know. That's because I was just one of the guys that was behind him, and he could never see me.
So after your illustrious non-brake racing career, where did you go from there? How did all this other stuff start?
Okay, so how it really kind of started, where I got into the working on the cars, or back to my racing career, I was racing. I had a modified and bought a sportsman car.
By the way, just one more. Once mentioned your name. Just want to throw that out there.
I know. You never knew who I was. Never knew who I was. I was the guy behind him in tech. Okay, so I went from a modified, and I bought a wrecked sportsman car, and I bought it off a guy by the name of John Fitzpatrick. And what happened is I had it fixed. It needed a front clip, so I had it over at Calls. I put a front clip on it, but it never had anything in it. So I went down and I bought a bunch of the parts and pieces for that car off of John Fitzpatrick. At that time, I was working in a Ford dealer. Everybody probably knows who that guy was, and that was Dave Mathers. I worked for him.
And so Mark knows, just not to interrupt, John Fitzpatrick is JR's dad, Mark.
Yeah, great.
And so I ended up down there, and he was looking for a guy to work on his cars. Donnie Thompson was there at that time. They went from one car to 2 cars. I can't remember what year that'd be, 1999 maybe?
Yeah, probably.
Somewhere in there, 99, 2000.
So John was racing, then he brought Donnie in two cars.
Donnie had his own cars at that time, and John had a car, but John figured out pretty quickly that Donnie liked working more on his car than probably on John's car. So they were looking for somebody just to do maintenance and, hang body panels back on it, do stuff like that. I kind of hummed and hawed. I had a pretty good job at the dealership.
Yeah.
I don't know. One day we weren't busy, and I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I didn't have any real expenses or anything like that. So, I took him up on I called him up, took him up on his job, and it was going to be just for the summer. And I was there for 3.5 years. So, and then it kind of went from there, right? I ended up going, I got hired by Kevin Delaware, Ford Motor Company. And then after that, I think I ended up working for Cole Perrin. So there was a lot of things in there where I had moved around a little bit every other year. So
yeah.
If it wasn't for John, I don't know if I ever would have went and did it full time. Don't know. You look back at it and you go, why did you make that decision? I don't know why I made it. I just did.
I can relate, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing it pretty much ever since. Now, the last 7 or 8 years in the wintertime, I took a job at Fanshawe College teaching automotive after that. So that's what I kind of do in the wintertime. And then summer, I still race. I tried to retire, but no, it didn't work. It didn't work.
Now,
my wife said it was the shortest retirement ever. I think I was retired for 3.5 weeks or something, and then went back and did it again.
Yeah, you're retired because you're between jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, didn't you win a CASCAR national championship when you're with Donnie Thompson as well?
I did, yeah. So
and in East, right, Billy?
Yeah, and so back in the early 2000s, 99, it was a little bit different format how you won the national championship. 2001, they kind of balled it all together and everything was together. But before that, you used to have an Eastern champion, a Western champion, and a national champion. And in 99 or 2000. I think we won the East and we lost the National by 1 point. I believe it was Peter Gibbons, if I remember.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
And then the next year we won the whole thing. So, and you know, working at Fitzpatrick's was like going to school. You learned so much the first couple of years that when you thought you knew lots, you know, the way that they ran that team as a professional team compared to what other teams were at that time. Right. You know, we had good equipment, we had good cars, good haulers, you know, everybody had lots of guys.
Lots of bank.
But we had there was not a shortage of that. It was, you know, and it was fun. It was, you know, when you're winning and you're running good, that's fun. When you're not running good and you're not winning, it's usually not so much fun. You know,
absolutely.
You know, Alex, you can relate to that. It's no fun when you're either broke down or wrecked, or, you know, and usually they go together. If you're breaking down all the time, you're usually trying to keep up and you end up getting wrecked. So, it was good times. It was fun there. But I don't know, I had other offers, so I left. Make a long story short.
Yeah, well, he won a few more championships after you left too.
That's right. Yeah, I guess I wasn't the only factor. But so did I.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And you know what? That's exactly right, because and you end up working with Dave Jacobs at Jacobs Racing, and at the time brought in this French Canadian kid that came from the road race stuff, Andrew Ranger. That ended up being a dream matchup as you guys go on to win 2 NASCAR championships together and a bunch of races. For at least one season, that's when me and you worked together at Jacobs, where you worked with Ranger. I had Tagliani, 2 pretty talented dudes for sure. And, you know, talking about those championship years, and, you know, I'm going to go back to St. Eustache since you kind of screwed me over there. How about the time where maybe we beat your ass in Edmonton?
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Oh, how many times did you ask me to just lead one lap, you lying bastard? You'd have never let us back.
The points.
I've heard this story. Yeah.
I know that he would have gave it back once we got to the lead. That always happens. We always pull over and let you back again.
Listen, before you talk about your championships with Ranger and Jacobs, just so everybody knows, we were on the same box that day, and I don't think we talked for 3 weeks after that.
I don't think it was
a little touchy.
I don't think I was that distraught.
Oh, you were grumpy.
Well, I was
Alex, let me ask you a question. If the shoe was on the other foot, would you have given the lead back?
Not a chance. I knew that. That's why I wasn't giving it to him.
I just thought, you know, you might fall for it.
Yeah, you got it. You can't fault a guy for driving. I told Mark before, we're in New Brunswick race, and I don't know if you were out there with somebody then, and at the AC Delco car, and that's when the Blue Streak bonus money was up for grabs. If you lead at the quarter, the half, the 3/4, and the win, you get like 10 or 12 grand or something. Yeah. And DJ's behind me, right on my ass, and his crew chief over to Teddy saying, "Listen, just let us lead one lap for some points. That's all. We'll give it right back to you." Teddy radios to me. I said, "Bullshit. He's not getting nothing." And we go on to win flag to flag and got all the bonus money. And man, we needed it too to get home. So
yeah. Well, I was likely there. I know I was in Fredericton. Leading up to that, how I really started as a crew chief was actually kind of funny because I worked for a guy in the early 90s, and his name was Brad Jakes.
Yeah.
And so Alex would remember him, and I got to be crew chief just by default because the other guy quit, and he just kind of went around and went, "Okay, you're crew chief." So I was probably 18 at that time, maybe 19, somewhere in there. So I was likely out there. I did coast to coast with him when, you know, they used to go to Calgary, and then I think one year we went to Saskatoon, I think.
Yeah.
And we went out east too. Yeah. I don't know if that was the same one where we went to We did Saint Eustache, Saint Croix.
Yeah, same
Somewhere
weekend.
else. Can't remember now.
Oh, we did Ottawa, Saint Eustache the same weekend or something. It was crazy. Yeah, we were dumb. But hey, talk about Ranger. Talk about Ranger and the championships. Okay,
so in 2007, by this time now, I've started my own business. Just basically a repair facility. And, I was doing some work for Dave Jacobs. He was fixing up a road course car, and it was actually going to be for Rob and Buck. They were going to.
Let me guess. Let me guess. It was a Whitlock car.
Yeah.
Everything Dave had was an ex-Whitlock car.
And basically he wasn't going to run the full season. He was just going to run a few races with Rob, and he didn't have any funding. He was going to step out of the driver's seat, and then and I don't know how this all got put together with Dave and Andrew, but he ends up getting a deal with Procter & Gamble to run the full season of the NASCAR series.
Yeah, I think our buddy Alan LaBrosse probably helped bring that together, right?
Yep, I think he was one of the partners in it. I don't know how they got to Dave.
Yeah, I don't know either.
That's what I was at. That's what I was getting at. I don't know how they got to Dave, but anyways, he popped into my shop, and I was only working on one car, and I had pretty much most of it together. I wasn't in a panic because I don't think they were going to race for a couple more months. And he stopped in to see how it was doing and brought me 2 more cars. Said I got to have them done by whatever the test date was at that point. And then at the very first test is when I met Andy. And, it didn't take long. Anybody that's watched somebody that is that talented, strap in one of those things, and you've never driven a stock car before.
No, crazy.
And he'd either race go-karts or Indy cars. And to get in one of them, and I think we went and tested a couple of times. We weren't real good. The first one I remember. The second one we got better. And then I think the very first race, I think he finished 4th. And that was at Jukasa.
Yeah, that's right.
And then we didn't fall out of races, I guess. We didn't tear it up and win a bunch of races. He was always strong on the road courses. I think we won Mossport, maybe 2 spots that Three Rivers he was good at because he ran the Atlantic there, I think. And then we developed into 2 teams, and that's when Alex comes to play. He comes into the picture with Tagliani. And that was another feat. I don't know, if we were 100% ready for, we could barely. In 2007, even though we won the championship, won a bunch of races, I kind of primarily looked at it too as like some of the key players had a bad year that year. Either crashed or broke engines, and we didn't seem to really fall out of a lot of races. We didn't win a lot of races, but we didn't fall out of them. And then at the end, it just basically came down to the last race. I can't remember, was it DJ or JR? I can't remember which one we were fighting for at the end. I know it came down to 2 players at the end for the last race.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But I know one thing: you didn't win Edmonton. just want to remind you.
For the second time.
I had to wait for the next year. When you weren't there, I won it the next year.
Bernsey, as a washed-up driver, I was your apprentice. I didn't know how to crew chief. Dave said, "Can you crew chief?" I said, "I don't know. Give it a shot. What the hell do I know?"
Yeah.
But anyways.
No, it was fun. It was fun, other than I just don't know if we had the I don't know if it was the exact right time to put the 2 of us. I think if it was in different circumstances and we had,
the winter to work up to it and put it together. Yeah, for sure. No, it's fun though, man.
Everything seemed to be last minute.
Yeah, it was for sure. And then, of course, you guys had better stuff than we had, and I had to listen to Tag busting my ass about that. But it was all good, man. That was part of it. It was a blast. We joked about it, maybe over a bottle of whiskey or something after each race, but it was good. Yeah. It was a good time. And then, you worked with this guy before, another French-Canadian friend of ours, LP Dumoulin, but We just talked about your other championships. And then, dude, I see you at Delaware this year for the finale in September. You drop in at Delaware and spot for a friend LP and steal a piece of another championship. I'm like, wow, you think I busted your ass there? Listen, what did you do?
I told you.
Hang on a sec. What did you do? Look down through the driver standings, see who might have had a chance to win, and call them up and say, dude, I'm available to spot. Like, what was the deal?
Well, I needed someone. I needed a way to get in there. I needed somebody to pay for my way in. So I gave him a call. No, he actually called me. I was actually over in Europe at the time when he texted me because his actual, this is the actual truth. His spotter actually, his wife was having a baby, so he didn't have a spotter. So he called me up, and I think that I was there for 25% of the season.
Fair enough. With the screwed up
because
season.
25% of the season was all in one day.
Yep. 3 races, 1 weekend, right?
So
it was maybe more than 25%.
I kind of thought that, we got back at that Edmonton win because it happened to be through tag that they were fighting for the championship with.
That's right. And then sure
and
enough.
I can't remember, was he 12 points back going into that and ended up 8 or 10 ahead at the end. So
yeah, tag had a rough weekend.
Yeah. You have those.
Yeah. Bill, you've definitely been around motorsports, and like we said earlier, working in Europe, plus you also spent some time working with teams in Western Canada, which you touched on, and Quebec, and you also went south with Ranger for a bunch of K&N races in the off season. My question is, first, how was that experience down there? And also, I bet you raced against, or did you race against anyone down there that we watch on TV now?
Yeah. So, when in 2009, I think we did win the championship in 2009. What happened was Procter & Gamble pulled out of Canadian racing, which was a sad day because they were great. They were a great sponsor. Good people you dealt with. Pretty much they had somebody there at every race. And it left Andrew basically without a ride. So he got an opportunity from a team in out of Boston. And I didn't go the very first year, but I went that was in 2010. So I guess I went at the end of 2010, 11, 12, 13, and a little bit of 14. Kind of worked in the U.S. So it was definitely an eye opener. The team was a really good bunch of guys, which I really liked. There was some guys on there that Alex would know. Mike Olson was our sponsor, who ran nationwide. K&N, he was a big supporter of K&N. There was another guy, Jeremy. He worked, for Mike Stefanik. There was a bunch of guys in there that had been places and been on winning teams, and they all kind of amalgamated. And I think what was great about it is we never ran for a championship. We ran K&N West, K&N East, ARCA, and Nationwide. And we didn't run all the races in any of them. So you could be at a road course one weekend, a dirt track the next weekend in an ARCA car, be out west in Phoenix in a K&N car. We raced New Hampshire, Dover, we raced all the racetracks that were, pretty much in the Northeast and the South, the South and the West. What was fun about it too is I look around at the driver standings now and you see the guys that raced against: Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon, Chris Buescher, Ryan Reed, John Hunter Nemechek. There was a bunch of them that, Stephen Wallace, Bubba Wallace too. Both of them had both Wallaces. There was a lot of guys that ended up either being in a Nationwide or a truck. Ben Rhodes was another one. Ben Kennedy was another one. Like, there was just lots of them. And you went to some really, really good tracks too. And Andrew ran real well at a lot of them. So he won 5 ARCA races, I think. Won 2 or 3 or 4 K&N races. Every time we went to New Jersey, he won. New Hampshire, went to Chicago. Like, it was just they just kind of just threw a dart at like, to me, they just threw a dart at a calendar and said, okay, we'll go here.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Depending.
It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And you went to win. So, if it got beat up or crashed up, you didn't really come in and try to make it the best you could to go back out. You just kind of put it in the trailer, fixed it at the garage, and went to the next one and try and win in. We had good equipment. We had Penske engines. We had all that. We had good stuff. We bought, at one point when I was there in 2012, they went down and bought the car that Marcus Ambrose drove at Sonoma. Remember when he ran out of gas?
Yeah.
Leading, they bought that car. So we knew it was a good, proven, good car.
Nice.
So, yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that. The travel was, it's not as much as it is now, but there's still travel. You were going across the border about every weekend to go somewhere. And that gets a little dicey too. You can only say you're going to so many weddings.
That definitely sounds like you had some great memories down there. And, speaking of memories, you spent lots of time around here, obviously. And I have to ask you, with the announcement last week about Jukasa Motor Speedway closing permanently, what do you think about this? And how do you think it's going to affect the landscape for Canadian motorsports going forward?
Well, it is a huge blow. And I don't think there's anybody that's going to disagree with me that's in the racing community that is not going to know that it's a big blow. It was premier facility by far in Ontario, well, Canada, period, as an oval track. How is it going to change the landscape? Well, I don't know. We'll all have to adjust somehow, but I just hope that at some point it either comes up for sale or it comes up for lease or something along those lines, that we can get back to that place and use the facility again. I think if you leave it sit, it won't be the same as it was if we would have kept racing on it. I was kind of heartbroken when I heard it. I was kind of hoping that they would say, oh, you know what, we're gonna open back up and go full bore again, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And unfortunately, it seems to be happening more and more. And unlike Europe or United States, where they have way more racetracks than we do, up here we just can't afford to lose anymore, as far as I'm concerned. Alex will know, I was probably at one of the first races when Mossport Oval opened, when they paved it. It'd be late 80s, maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah. And
it's gone. I got to see Kawartha open. Now it's closed.
Barry.
St. Eustache, Vernon. I was at the very first race in Vernon. They didn't even have any grandstands there.
Yeah.
And then now,
our buddy Ronnie Sinclair was the GM scrambling.
Yeah. He was hot on the mic, and he was the hot manager. So, and to see what's happened to it is just sitting there with weeds growing up through it, and they're doing nothing with it. I just, like I said, in Canada, we just don't have. You can go to Europe, you can go to any country in Europe, and they got 40, 50 racetracks, all kinds of different configurations. And over here, we don't even have 40 racetracks, I don't think, in all of Canada. And we probably had, 25% of them closed down in the last, 8 to 10 years, which is, to me, I want more. I just don't know how we get more, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And obviously, I totally understand what you're talking about. And we were together and been part of a lot of closures. And, this one definitely hits home for me. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll keep our hopes up, and we'll see where it goes. But, Bernsey, every time me and you get together, we're chatting on the phone or something, we always talk about different things in the racing industry. And, of course, me and you always have the correct answers, so we think. But in all seriousness, we are headed, where are we headed? Track stuff aside. So I think, to be honest, besides the track thing, I think our sport is really healthy right now. It has been even before the pandemic. I thought the pandemic might have hurt us, but it hasn't seemed to. A lot of good stuff going on. Let's not be negative. But, and also, we need to be careful. And as we continue into the future, is there anything in particular, series or car or anything in general that we just need to watch out for, in your opinion?
As a death sentence, or
yeah, just to make sure we, racetracks aside, just to make sure we stay healthy.
Yeah.
Where do we focus?
What's always the elephant in the room is the cost, right? And how you contain the cost is. I've tried to wrap my head around it for 20 years, how to contain the cost. I don't think, you don't want to talk about the racetracks too much, but I don't think that any racetrack can survive on its own by a weekly series. I think it needs to have a variety of stuff at that racetrack throughout the season. And even though in Canada our season's very short compared to, say, the southern U.S., and even in Europe, most of their season is in the south where it's warm. They only go to the north in the summertime when it's warmer out. But when we have that short period of you got to make those tracks have to make a lot of bank, and I think you need to have traveling series. And the problem with traveling series is they're expensive. The expense. How do you curb it? You can only try to curb it by not letting, I've always said this too. We put the sanctioning bodies put rule books in place to save the owners from themselves, because if you had no rules, it gets even more and more expensive, because whoever has the most money, is probably going to be dominant. Like I said, how do you curb it when, everything around us is going up? The only thing that really hasn't gone up is the purse money. It's not, nowhere near to what the cost of the cars are. And the cost of the cars are no fault to the chassis builders. It's just, everything has gone up. Not a lot of teams do their own stuff anymore. They're going to the chassis builders and saying how much. I want a complete car. Obviously, if you could build it yourself, you're going to save a lot more money. But they don't seem to be doing that anymore. So, it's hard to say you want the small guy to come in, and they can if they do all their own work. But, at the end of the day, if they're not competitive, they're always going to second guess that they didn't get the right. They should have just went and bought it. And that's where I see where the problems are most. The other thing is like I said, they're doing as good as they can to control tires. Because tires are that consumable that seems to be very, very expensive at the end of the day. Now, I think there's a shortage now. I don't know how there's a shortage. If we're saying you can only have one set of tires for a weekend, how we have a shortage. But I think that's the biggest thing. And Alex will tell you, he's been on both sides of this. He's been on the side that has been the promoter, and he's also been on the side where he was on a team. And when he was on the team, he wanted as many tires as he could get. But then when he was on the promoter, I guarantee you that he was saying, well, you can only get so many tires.
Yeah. And that's where I was, I'm a little bit different on this side, because and Mark will probably ask us a couple of these things in rapid fire to finish up, but testing and tires, that's why dirt continues to flourish, because they don't use as many tires and they don't allow practice or testing, or they don't have it. They go there and race day, they do hot laps for 10 minutes. And so I think that we're starting to get a little bit more towards that. And I'm going to continue on anything I'm involved with moving forward, continue to push that. But I agree with everything you said. One thing I do see, and before Mark gets to his rapid fire, one thing I see, Burnsy, and maybe you can agree or disagree, is with a class like the Bone Stocks. What I see now is a whole bunch of younger people getting involved that are scrambling, building their stuff in the driveway again. And I think we got away from that for so long, but I do see a little bit more of that now. And hopefully that, things are cyclable, right? Up and down. And hopefully now with that, it's a great class, man. It's great for getting people involved. And those guys and girls are doing some of their own stuff to get their car ready for $1,500 or whatever. So hopefully that starts another trend again of people starting to do some of their own stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was looking more along the late model side of things, but no, the entry classes, the bone stock, even that, the APC, the super stocks, I only got to see a couple of those races. I saw the last one at Delaware, and I couldn't believe how competitive it actually was. They had lead changes, guys, and those guys to me are still, you still can go to Chassis Builder and buy a complete super stock. There's nothing stopping you from them doing that. But I think in the lower levels, yes, you still have guys and gals that are out there, working in the garage, with their parents, putting them together, kind of like we did.
But my point is, hopefully that cycles back.
I think it will. You look at the numbers of what those car counts are.
It's great. It's awesome. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And it's when we start to get into the bigger classes, that's when we start to get the massive amounts of money being spent.
Well, plus, guys like Burnsy would help everybody. Now he's a big shooter. He won't do nothing for less than $80 an hour.
A US.
That's why, Alex. That's why I had to go to Europe.
Yeah.
Everybody knows me here.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we've talked.
I needed a different area code.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about, the cost of racing for the racers and the cost for racetracks and so on. And, understanding that most of these racetracks were built as sort of single-use facilities. Nowadays, we're starting to see some of these racetracks doing non-sort of race events to try to make up some additional revenue. And I know, like with Jukasa, Alex had planned, Jukasa Festival of Bikes and monster truck shows and so on. And, I believe that they would have both been very successful. But have you seen in your travels, Bill, any racetracks that are doing any non-race events that, seem to sort of go in that direction to help out?
Well, in Europe, actually, they have, in the UK, so it's at a racetrack called Brands Hatch. They have an American Speed Festival, it's called. And not only are the racing, they have this massive car show, and it's all American built cars, which is just amazing over in Europe. I hadn't seen one of these cars, and I saw 3 of them over there. Is a Beaumont, like a 68 Beaumont. I hadn't seen one in Canada in years, and I saw 3 of them over there. So, and that particular race probably attracts 40 to 50,000 people at it. It's a huge event. Not only do they come to watch the race, but there's constantly people walking around through the car show. There's probably, I'd be guessing, there's probably 10 acres of cars. Like it's a big event. So, and that's what they're doing. I can remember back now. I don't know if we can get these things anymore, but if you, Alex, would remember this in the 70s and the 80s, how many times that did one of the racetracks have somebody that jumped a couple of buses on a motorcycle?
Yeah,
right. And you couldn't, there wasn't a place to sit in the whole place. Right.
Yeah.
But we don't seem to have that anymore. I don't know if there's just no daredevils left.
Well, we need to get, again, it's like you in the race business. The stunt drivers make too much money making movies and commercials now, so they don't want to do the lower end stuff, buddy. But no, you're right. If we could get a couple of those started up again, and yeah, listen, I think more and more race motorsports complexes all over, not just in this country, are slowly becoming entertainment complexes, and that's gonna take us over the top.
And I think that's what you need to with the way, maybe back in those days, we didn't have all the information that we have now. There wasn't so many other opportunities to go do other things. And I think that cuts into a bit of the, entertainment budgets for people. I think you need to reach out. I don't think you can do 20 weeks of the same thing over and over and over again. It seems like more people get maybe bored a little bit quicker because of our phones, and everything is so much more instant now than it was 25 years ago.
Well, let's hope that the racetracks start to get a little more creative and we start seeing some of these things happen, because that's certainly going to help, with their longevity for sure. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get into the rapid fire section. And so what this is, Bill, I'm going to fire off 10 questions quick, and we just want you to answer very quickly the first thing that comes to mind. Now, I will tell you that Alex has curated some of these questions, so there might be something he's trying to trip you up with here. But we should be able to get through it pretty quick. So starting with question 1, favorite thing to do during the off season?
Play hockey.
Oh, that's great, because that's going to lead into question 10. Just nice. All right. You've traveled to many different tracks all over the world. What's your favorite?
Oh, well, right now I like Vallelunga in Rome.
Yeah.
You win at
Yeah.
Three Rivers.
Yeah, that's cool.
I always liked it. A lot of character to it, and I can't leave out Delaware Speedway. It's 7 minutes from my house.
Yeah. So, testing, yay or nay?
There too.
Testing, yes or no?
No.
Wow, crew chief said it.
Yeah. Technology in racing, is it good or bad?
It's good.
Are you willing to say who the most talented driver is that you've worked with?
Pardon me?
Are you willing to say who the most talented driver that you've worked with is?
I would say it has to be Jacques Villeneuve.
Okay. Race wins or championships?
Mark, hang on a sec. Is it safe to say Rangers a close second, or would be second?
Definitely.
Yeah. So, race wins or championships?
Wins.
One thing you do to decrease costs or make the sport better?
I hate to beat up on the engine guys. Cheaper engines with the same amount of power.
Yeah.
Does travel ever get old for you?
Definitely.
Yeah. I know that feeling. What is one thing in motorsports you'd like to do before you're done your career?
Win a feature as a driver.
As a driver?
No, it doesn't have to be a driver. Alex is just trying to get you going.
Go out and not hit anything as a driver. There was a time where I would say to do the NASCAR route, but I think that definitely sailed for me. I don't know if I really have a thing that I really can pinpoint down that I want to put on the calendar that I have to have done. Yeah. I can't answer that. I don't have a definite.
It's fun to be.
Yeah, that's a testament to what you've done so far. So that's great. And the last question, and I almost hate to ask it because I know you're from the London area. Who's your favorite NHL team?
The New York Rangers.
Hang on a sec. Not the Buffalo Sabres, like Mark.
No. Not the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like,
does Buffalo got a team?
Mark's just happy he didn't say the Leafs. So,
no.
But anyways, poor bugger likes Buffalo, but hey, God bless him.
I like the Rangers too when they're playing the Leafs.
Yeah, they're playing well. Having a good season. I like them. Yeah. Anyways, Bernsey, thanks, man, for coming on, taking the time to chat with Mark and I today. It was fun. It's always fun to get together with you and catch up. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. And best of luck in 2022. It was fun.
Well, I've got lots more stories.
I hope they weren't stories about Alex because we can't get them.
Got the foot to the floor. They're gonna drive her in deep. Feel the inside of you. Right, you're clear.
right, you're clear.
Okay, hey Bill, here's a bonus question. Do you have anything on Alex that you can share?
Mark's been trying for fucking months. Told him I'm too clean.
We're still recording though, keep in mind.
He's squeaky clean. I don't know. No. We had some good, like I said, we had some pretty good times when we worked in, was that 08?
Yeah, 708.
But nothing to write home about or, that I can stick him with, that's for sure.
Nothing like a night with Wilcox.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's an event all on its own.
All right, everybody. We can't get anything out of Bill and Alex today, but it's going to happen one day. Thanks for listening to Driver in Deep, and hope we see you on the next one.